Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on the role, on the powers of European telecommunications authorities when it comes to environment and their main challenges regarding environmental sustainability and current sustainability priorities. So before we start, just a couple of words on our platform that we will be using today. So you can ask your questions using the question tab, that's arrow A. Please send us questions during the whole webinar. We will try to take as many questions as possible at the end of the webinar. And if we don't get to your question, don't worry, we will make sure to reply by email afterwards. You can also download the slides and some documentation in the documentation tab, that's arrow B. So you can go back afterwards to the presentation, and this webinar is being recorded, so you will have access as from tomorrow to the recording. Now today with us, I'm very happy to introduce you to my colleagues Bianca and Peter. So Bianca will be leading the presentation today. She's a principal analyst here at Cullen. She follows EU legislation and regulation on sustainability. And she previously worked for a European consultancy providing advice on the legal regulatory compliance of products placed on the EU market. And with us today, we also have Peter Dunn, who is director of European Relations and also head of the Sustainability Service, and he is responsible for developing and maintaining close relations with our members and contacts in Europe. So that's it for me, I think. At the end of the webinar, you will also have a feedback form, very short, but very important. Please fill it in. We need the feedback to be better and to have your suggestions. And now I will just pass the floor to Peter and Bianca, and I will be back afterwards for the questions.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Hello to everyone online. Welcome to this rather concise Cullen International webinar. Just before we start, I mean, I know most of you probably will already know Cullen and what we do, but quickly for those who don't, we describe ourselves as a regulatory intelligence provider. What that means in practice is that through the information we provide to clients, we like to put you in the best position possible to set out your strategic position and your regulatory position based upon the information that we provide. We keep you updated with the regulations and laws affecting your sector or this case, this particular topic, and how they're being implemented across different countries. Now, Cullen's been serving clients for around 40 years. In fact, it's our 40th anniversary just next year. But one of our newer services is the Sustainability Service, which is just 3 years old now. And this service focuses on development in environmental regulation and the rules and operational practices around environmental issues. And in the service, we look particularly at environmental developments in the digital communications sector. And this is really the context for the study that my colleague Bianca will take you through now. So just to kick us off, Bianca, are there any particular reasons why telecoms regulators have become more interested in environmental matters, and therefore why you conducted the research in the first place?
Well, thank you, Peter, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining, first of all. So yes, I believe there have been lately multiple and relevant studies that have consolidated, if we can say, the estimations on the environmental impact of the ICT sector, including the telecommunications networks. And I think the numbers still span around 2 to 4% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And because of this, and not only, environmental matters are still of high importance, a topic of high importance amongst telecom regulators, but not only. And even if the general feeling maybe that we've got in the past months or the past year, that sustainability is taking a back seat, if we can say like that, I think the exact science is still there. We have the numbers. We know that this is still a highly important topic that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, it's not going away, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the telecom sector can play an important role in the transition to a greener economy. And the NRAs, as we found out, are well aware of this, but not always have the right tools to deal or to address or contribute towards it. So this study was carried out to understand three main things, as you can see on this slide. If the NRAs have environmental powers, in fact, we knew from previous reports that ARCEP did already have a legal mandate, but we wanted to have a refreshed insight into this. Then second, what are the main challenges of NRAs regarding the environmental sustainability area, and also, not lastly, the current sustainability priorities of NRAs. And to do so, we interviewed 20 NRAs along the summer, a bit also into, we ran into September, and with this occasion, we want to thank them once again for their valuable inputs that led to writing this report. We unfortunately did not manage to reach all of them, as you can see on this map, but of course, we're more than happy to welcome any additional inputs if some of them are watching us right now. And maybe before sharing our main findings of the report, I can lay out a bit the framework, the regulatory framework that we currently have. So in 2022, the European Commission put forward this action plan on digitalizing the energy system. This is where we had this action item of developing an EU code of conduct for the sustainability of the telecommunications network, with a deadline for the end of this year. And as a first step, in March last year, the Commission identified 19 potential common indicators for measuring the environmental footprint of electronic communication networks, which would pave the way for this, for having such a code of conduct. And in fact, the identified indicators matched closely to the ones that BEREC also worked on in another report. There are also two associated stakeholder meetings for this code of conduct, with the last one taking place in November. So about a month ago, we had the last workshop, which had as an objective to finalize, let's say, the main pending points before publishing the main document. And without going too much into details on this code of conduct, we can say that we now have 8 final indicators that are spread across 3 different areas.
So down from 19.
Down
Okay,
from 19,
right.
yes. But even in those 19, we had 8 that were of high importance. Okay. So I think those of high importance were the ones that stuck in the end. Exactly. And these, I was saying, these spread across 3 different sectors, which is energy, climate, and environment. So we are expecting the code of conduct by the end of this year, but I think the Commission also communicated that might go into January or early January for having the final document. And in relation to, let's say, a possible regulatory remit in June this year, the Commission also published a call for evidence for the Digital Networks Act, also known as the DNA. It is possible that this upcoming DNA could provide NRAs with a mandate to work on sustainability issues if environmental considerations were to be included in the regulatory objectives of this act. And so the DNA proposal will be part of the revision of the European Electronic Communication Code. And we found that the NRAs largely support the inclusion of an environmental objective in the future revision of the code, or maybe with bringing attention to not go against innovation, consumer protection rules, competition, but also to have the responsibilities of the NRAs clearly laid out. Some NRAs also mentioned that the amendment should target areas such as emission reporting, infrastructure sharing incentives, or network sustainability benchmarks. And several NRAs have mentioned during the interviews that they expect that the DNA could provide a bit more clarity as to their role in addressing environmental sustainability. And in what concerns the timeline, we were also expecting it by the end of the year, but we've had a recent also announcement that will be actually pushed also into January. So I think we'll have these two main things to keep a close look at when we start the new year.
Yeah, and the DNA seems to be a bit fraught at the moment, but I guess time will tell on that. I mean, so Bianca, you've already touched upon quite a bit on the remit. So you mentioned that ARCEP, the French regulator, already has a remit, and I'm sure you're going to explain that in a second. But how many other telecoms NRAs have that same kind of legal remit or ability, power, if you like, to look into the environmental matters? And if they have or haven't, in either case, have many taken the initiative to do some work in this area?
Mm-hmm. So, well, the good news is that yes, in short, yes, there is. I mean, we're happy to bring some new information as well. As I've been saying at the beginning of the presentation, we knew that ARCEP did have such a legal mandate to collect data, but we also found out that in Denmark, the Danish Agency for Digital Government has also a specific legal mandate to do so, more recently from 2023. So for ARCEP, they were already collecting data in 2020 as part of their mandate, and from the four main electronic communication operators. Later on in 2021, they have been granted an expansion of this legal mandate through the REAM 2 Act, as they refer to, and this allows them to collect data from more organizations that they were previously able to. And for Denmark, since December 2023, the Agency for Digital Government, so ADG, I think it's abbreviated, was granted power to collect environmental data through the Act on Electronic Communication Networks and Services. And in fact, in Denmark, the, let's say, regulatory powers for the telecommunications sector is divided between ADG and the Danish Competition and Consumer Authority. So we were also, it was interesting also to find this out. ADG is responsible for implementing policies for developing the digital public sector and large parts of the Danish service infrastructure. So we have these two institutions that do have a legal mandate. And in Cyprus and in Norway, as you can also see on this map, the authorities, or not the authorities, the countries exactly are revising some regulation that might concern the authorities and that might end up entrusting them with some environmental powers. So we might see some changes in these countries as well.
So in all the countries that have got power or might have power soon, it's all coming from a kind of separate law to the telecoms framework, right? Which is why I guess they're interested in this kind of more harmonized approach through the DNA.
Yeah, exactly. And I know this map seems a bit dramatic with all the red that we see here, but maybe we can show a different view if we look from another perspective at this. We found that NRAs can and often do collect environmental data on a voluntary basis despite not having a legal mandate. So you can see here that some countries already carried out environmental initiatives, be it studies or developing sustainability policies or interacting on an active basis with stakeholders. Some did not carry studies yet, but they have environmental sustainability as a priority topic. So it's on their agenda. And some member states, and you see it's quite a minority, that it's not a priority yet as a topic. And this is sometimes also dependent on the political landscape at national level. Sure. It's not always that they can choose maybe to focus on that if at national level it's not a priority necessarily.
Yeah, and maybe that's a resource issue as well, I suppose, right?
Exactly.
So, okay.
And maybe to give you two examples from these initiatives, we had many, but I only had to choose a few to give to present to you given the short time. So maybe we can mention in Greece, EETT, that conducted a study on the sustainability challenges and potential next steps for the telecommunication sector in Greece. As a result of this study, EETT is supporting some actions which aim to achieve environmental goals within the mandate, like promoting energy efficiency network development, or also just encouraging infrastructure sharing when appropriate. And another example comes from Norway, where NCOM performed a footprint analysis of the Norwegian digital infrastructure, which aims to map, let's say, which segment of the digital infrastructure has the greatest impact on climate and nature. And the end scope, let's say, of this footprint analysis would be to develop a dashboard that quantifies the environmental footprint of data centers, and not only also networks and connected devices. So I think it's quite an interesting project. And as I was mentioning, there are other examples, but just to give a few, we listed many more in the report.
And you mentioned data centers, which is clearly a kind of hot topic on the environmental side. So I'm imagining that kind of regardless of the powers they have today, most of the regulators have kind of what you might call a kind of hit list of environmental issues that they're particularly interested in, were they to get the powers or have the resources. Did your research reveal a bit more about that?
Yeah, so if we look a bit, first of all, we looked at this maybe from two angles. Firstly, we looked into maybe the challenges and concerns. They're sometimes not the same thing. So the first one looked into the challenges and concerns in implementing existing environmental measures. And interestingly enough, not having a legal mandate came second to the challenges or concerns around data center energy consumption, especially in relation to AI. This might also be because with the current set of studies that we have right now, might not be the most maybe relevant data. There's still maybe some time to pass to have some data that we can rely more upon on the effects of AI. And maybe this was also one of the reasons for this major concern of NRAs. And we see also other highlighted challenges, as the lack of harmonized indicators to compare the data, or a high energy consumption of end user devices, or just not having specific metrics to measure the environmental impact of the telecommunications sector. And these are the points that, let's say, the common ground between NRAs, because also some of them highlighted individual concerns, like transparency around the environmental and climate effects of the telecom sector, or just the lack of skills and knowledge of personnel related to this topic. From the other angle, let's say, we also looked at sustainability priorities of NRAs. And naturally, I think now NRAs are focused to contributing to, let's say, establish this code of conduct for the sustainability of the telecommunication networks. But besides this, you'll also notice in this slide that sustainability, the priorities do not necessarily correspond to the challenges that we identified, but there are some similarities, such as the one concerning the energy consumption, prioritizing to encourage energy efficiency in networks and consumer devices. And some others were also related to e-waste, to monitor greenhouse gas emissions, but also a bit on the relationship between different stakeholders to exchange best practices, and overall just to improve transparency around data collection, environmental data collection.
So what I kind of observed looking at this is that it's a real mixture of different things and different sort of addressed areas as well, right?
Yes.
Because you've got the European Code of Conduct, which will address network equipment, but then you've also got stuff here about consumer equipment and about end users and other factors as well. So.
Yeah, I think just the topic on itself touches upon so many different things that also the priorities and challenges are a bit spread out, let's say, topic-wise. Yeah. And as I was referring for the challenges, these are the common things that have been brought out by NRAs, but there have been also some initiatives that have been also pointed out that maybe give a bit of an idea on where the priorities of the NRAs lie. For example, for RCEP, that has been focusing on the eco-design of digital services. And it looks more at the interdependence of the various blocks of the digital value chain. And we've listed again some other examples throughout the report, but yeah, just to give you also an example of these priorities.
Okay, great. And just I'm just reflecting on the kind of the way that regulators will kind of work with these priorities if and when they get the remit and the resources, right? So they're experts in the telecom sector, but I'm guessing they have to interact with, you know, maybe the environmental agency or other authorities that on something like IT equipment, it's not just telecom stuff, right? So, I mean, is there a best practice for that? Is there clear delineation of responsibilities? Is there a common way of working? Did you find anything on that?
Yeah, so we did look into that, let's say. Part of our conversations or the interviews with the NRAs also looked into understanding if there's any cooperation with other relevant authorities at national level. And we found that some NRAs do collaborate with the Ministry of Environment as expected, or maybe not. And maybe also to exchange as a main scope, to exchange expertise or just to avoid the duplication of work. And another institution for which we were curious if there's any collaboration were the environmental agencies. So you can see here that it's a bit less than those that collaborate with the Ministry of Environment. Some NRAs were also mentioning that the collaboration with these two institutions is carried out not in a formal way, so on an ad hoc basis, and also because this collaboration cannot go really beyond some delimitations in the sense that mostly because these institutions lack the specific knowledge on addressing sustainability issues for the telecom sector. So the collaboration is a bit limited also from this point of view.
Sorry, I was going to say, so in a way, you've got the telecoms regulators who maybe don't know so much about environmental issues, and the environmental guys who don't know so much about telecoms.
Exactly.
And they have to find a way to cross that bridge.
Yeah. I think there's still some work to do there, but if there's willingness from both sides, maybe it can work out for the best. And some other ministries or institutions that have been mentioned by the NRAs are the ones that I list here in the last bullet point. So the Ministry of Economy has been mentioned, recycling agencies, and I think twice for two of the NRAs, the Ministry for Digital Transformation was also mentioned as one of the institutions they usually collaborate with. So yes, there is some collaboration ongoing, but there are some caveats as expected.
Okay. Great, and so that's kind of those are the main findings of the study, right? The main areas, anyway. There's a lot more detail in the report.
Yeah, definitely. We also listed some the last part of the report when we were wondering of the priorities or the initiatives. We were also asking for relevant links to the studies that they developed. So we tried to also provide that information for people reading the report. Maybe it's interesting to also look at what other NRAs are doing in terms of studies.
So there's a pretty long list of studies and things and activities that have been taken so far.
Okay. Yeah. We were happy to find that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Good. Right. I think that kind of wraps up the main content, right, of what we're going to present today. As I said, we're very happy to take your questions. So thanks a lot, Bianca, for presenting that. And also we should say thank you again to the many sort of regulatory authorities that helped us with their interviews and their inputs, coming back on questions we asked. And perhaps also to a quick mention for Tom and Maria at the BEREC working group, who helped us identify the right people to go to and that kind of thing. So,
and also spread the knowledge because they were also willing to share this report to reach some NRAs that we were not able to in the end. So we hope we managed to share the report with the right people.
Well, thank you, Bianca and Peter. It was time flies because it was a nice, interactive, and very interesting information that you provided. So just a reminder for the participants. So if you want to send us your questions, you can do so with the question types. I already have some, but you can still write us your questions. And if we don't have the time to answer all of them, we will reply by email. No worries. Okay, so I have the first question here. what have telecoms regulators been doing collectively, like in BEREC, on environmental issues? I don't know who wants to take this question.
Yeah, yeah, I think BEREC generally has been very, very active on this environmental topic. As Peter was mentioning, Tom and Maria are always interacting also, not only with us, I imagine with the NRAs and trying to organize events on the relevant topics, but also putting out interesting reports.
Yep.
I think they've also published something also on the eco-design of digital services. Yep. As I've been mentioning in the beginning of the report, they were also doing a separate study to the Commission, looking at those potential indicators for the code of conduct of for the sustainability of telecommunication networks. So there's quite some activity, and we're happy to see that it's still an important topic within BEREC.
And they've done some stuff on, I think a couple of years ago, maybe they had the information campaign for consumers, I think.
Yes,
also the
exactly.
satellite event not so long ago, earlier this year. So
yes,
which had
this
some
one and another
well.
one, eco design in the beginning of the year as well. So it's good to see that they're quite active as well.
So for those who are not in the sort of European telecoms bubble, as it were, so BEREC is the sort of club of European telecoms regulators, and they've been really quite active in this environmental area.
Okay, I have several questions now on the code of conduct. The first one, perhaps, what is the latest on this and what issues remain outstanding? And then I will have another one on that, but I will already let you answer this one.
Yeah, well, we participated to this last workshop that took place in November, and maybe also not to give too many details about this. Also, if people from the Commission are following us, can correct us if we say something wrong. But maybe one of the main things to point out from the last workshop was that previously the code of conduct, or the scope of the code of conduct, was looking into targeting the public electronic communication networks. And this topic has been addressed by some stakeholders at the workshop. And in a, let's say, pre-final draft that we've seen, this public word is not there anymore. So we interpreted that also private ECN will also be targeted now. So maybe this is a relevant latest development that we can share. But yeah.
Yeah, and in terms of the status, I mean, I think it's as Bianca described earlier, that we're very near to a final state now, and we expect the final version to be either side of Christmas, but very soon.
Yeah. Okay. And another question also on the code of conduct. How will it be used? In which regulations do you foresee its use, and how will it be integrated in those regulations? And do you know when it will be mandatory? So many questions in one question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess most of these questions are really for the Commission rather than us, right? But,
oh, we'll send them an email.
Yeah, I think for now the idea is still to remain a voluntary code of conduct, right? It's a bit of the same idea that we have for data centers. Maybe it's important to mention that it's possible that this code of conduct should be used as the technical screening criteria for the taxonomy regulation, to include the telecommunication sector into this this regulation that aims to, let's say, drive investment into greener sectors or technologies. So this might be an important connection to make with one of the regulations, and maybe there's also some on the reporting sustainability reporting regulations, but it's still a bit unclear how it will connect. Or
yeah, I mean, it looks like in the near future it's going to be much more on an kind of incentive basis, right? That companies will be incentivized to follow the code of practice, both to show their environmental credentials, if you like, and to save energy, bluntly, but also to fit within the taxonomy if it becomes a technical screening criteria, and that gives some advantages as well, rather than it being mandated by regulation, although I guess that could come at some point.
At a certain
down the
point,
road.
yes, yes.
Yeah, I don't know if we can take one last question.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Are you up for it?
Yeah,
Why not?
So,
Why not?
depends on the question.
actually, it's a nice one for the future. So, do you have plans to look into whether regulators in other sectors play a role in environmental issues?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? Because I mean, I think we found this study really interesting. It's really good to engage the regulators, as it will be. You know, if we're doing something similar for, I don't know, operators practices or something, that would also be super interesting. So we found the process really interesting and delivered some nice results. So I think we'd definitely be up for doing something similar. As for other sectors, as I said at the beginning, at the moment our service focuses really on digital communications as the kind of vertical part of a lot of horizontal stuff. But we're also, you know, due to expand very soon into transport and delivery. We're having something pretty ready for launch soon on covering environmental issues in transport and delivery. So it's kind of a natural segue for us, and many of them are the same regulators, in fact, to talk to the postal regulators maybe about something along these lines. So watch this space.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. We're coming with we are bearing gifts. Okay, well, I think that pretty much wraps up the webinar. Well, if you have any further questions, really don't hesitate to send us an email. We're always happy to answer. And yeah, as we are reaching the end of the year, well, stay tuned because other events are coming. As Peter mentioned, our 40th anniversary is coming with, as you can imagine, some actions that will be organized. And yeah, that's it for me. Don't forget, please, to give us some feedback when we close the webinar. And thank you, Bianca. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everyone who joined. And yeah, see you at the next webinar on 16th of December. That will be a totally different topic. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.